Welcome back to another exciting episode of Design Lab with Adam, me. Today, I'm aiming for a lot of videos this month. That's my goal. I just got back from vacation, so let's see if I can hit 10 videos this month. See if I can hit 5,000 subscribers. Let's do it, people. If you're not subscribed, why don't you do that right now? Today, we're looking at a comic, and I'm going to look at a lot more comics, do a lot of book reviews, other junk, probably just book reviews and comic reviews or design labs like this for the next 10 years or so. So let's just get to it and hit that subscribe button. Okay, today, Camelot 3000. This is a comic I feel like I should have read sooner. Like it's pretty well known. It's a comic that came out, I think, originally 1983 to 1985. Art by Brian Bolland, who I've always liked his art. Batman, The Killing Joke, his covers on Animal Man, The Invisibles. Those are probably the things that I know him best for, but I think he did a lot of, I think he's British. I don't know though. And I think he did a lot of British comics, but I don't really know. Maybe like 2000 AD, something like that. And then the author, Mike W. Barr, I kind of know principally for his Batman stories, like Batman and the Outsiders. I remember I would go through the back issue bins as a teenager and read Batman and the Outsiders. And I probably haven't read him in 20 years at least. I don't remember. So anyways, this is a very 1980s-ish comic. This cover that we're looking at, by the way, right now is not the original, not part of the original. I'm guessing Brian Bolland did this for this deluxe edition that came out in 2008. This is not the edition that I read. I actually read a Portuguese edition, so maybe there'll be some surprises, and we'll see what's so deluxe about this deluxe edition. Great cover, though. Brian Bolland, really great cover artist, and just a great artist in general, I think. So yeah, I think the coloring on this is probably better than the coloring on the original too, on this cover. All right, so let's get cracking. I didn't know what to expect with this comic. I kind of had heard one thing about it that I don't remember who said this or where I read it, but somebody said that this is basically like a superhero comic. Whatever its aspirations towards fantasy or science fiction or whatever, it's essentially a superhero title, and we'll see how that plays out. I'm not going to go through every single panel in hyper detail, but it's like a 300-page comic. But I'm going to zoom in on some parts that I found were kind of interesting or whatnot. I haven't read this introduction yet. Maybe I'll read it after this, but let's just keep going and get right to the comic itself. Okay, I guess this is the original cover, and I feel like King Arthur in this. There was like, I'm pretty familiar with the King Arthur story overall. Like, Sword in the Stone is one of my favorite videos, Disney movies as a kid, but a lot of it I'm kind of hazy on. I probably should do actually do have some French comics that are like King Arthur retelling, so I should probably read those at some time. Anyways, great art, Brian Bolland. Even though it looks good still, it's still great art. It does look different from his later stuff on Animal Man that I know him for, and the covers on The Invisibles. They're I don't know, this looks maybe it's the coloring too, but it looks very 80s. Like, to me, the art styles I was thinking of throughout this was like George Perez, Teen Titans type stuff, and X-Men, John Byrne, that kind of stuff. And just that early 1980s like feel of how comics looked. It was very much on par with that. And there's also this like, this kind of, there's like an optimism to it, like, but there's also this kind of dark side to it. And I think that's something also you see in like X-Men and things like that. So anyways, basically it begins as like a sci-fi story in which we're kind of thrown, it's kind of like Days of Future Past. I was thinking of that. There's so much like X-Men influence, but not just X-Men. I was also thinking a lot about Star Wars, obviously, and Dungeons and Dragons. There's like so much of that whole vibe. I don't know if you saw that Mazes and Monsters movie with Tom Hanks, but yeah, that kind of Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons vibe. And I was thinking about how I never thought about this until I read this comic, but Star Wars is essentially Dungeons and Dragons just in space, right? It's kind of throwing out all the hard science of like Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, things like that, and going towards the opposite direction with like just pure fantasy, space fantasy, and not worrying about the science behind it. Just saying like, in the future, people will be really smart and have all these abilities. So anyways, this comic begins with this, this everyman character. He's like running from the bad aliens who have taken over Earth. And the aliens throughout this are just like kind of stupid and just, it's different. In my edition, it was kind of weird. In the Portuguese edition, they actually wrote in Greek letters, but the aliens were speaking Portuguese, which it was just like kind of hard to read because it was in Greek letters. But I guess in the original edition, it's more just like gibberish. I kind of like the, let me show you the ridiculous, yeah, so here's the Portuguese edition I read. Let's find some aliens if I can. And how they talk, because it's just so bad. Oh wait, I think here we got some. Okay, yeah. So like the aliens, they're talking. It just says agore soabater. I don't know what they're saying, but yeah, it's basically just silly. So anyways, back to the story. So yeah, basically very X-Men like. Nice art, but I feel like it's not quite as pristine as the Brian Bolland that I've kind of knew, like that I know him best as. It looks more just like John Burney and kind of not as interesting. Like maybe it's the inking too, but okay art. I mean, it does the job. And there were many times as I was reading that I thought the art was above the story. Like it's like this story does not deserve art this good. It's like this is almost a cheesy story. And in the first few issues, like basically he just goes into what's it called, Glastonbury Tor or whatever, that hill in England, and he just stumbles upon King Arthur's tomb and lets him out. And right away King Arthur's talking modern English, which is just stupid. But I mean, even if we allow that in the year 3000 we're still speaking the exact same English as now, it doesn't explain why King Arthur is speaking modern English. It's just maybe they have Babelfish or something. But so when I read this first issue, I thought this is cheesy and kind of stupid, and these aliens are kind of dumb. Basically, King Arthur destroys the aliens and he fights them, and he uses guns right away. And it's like, okay, this is kind of stupid. I'm like, I don't know, this is kind of lame at first, but I did find as I kept going with it, it got better. But some of the characters, like King Arthur, is kind of like a two-dimensional character, and there are better characters, but a lot of the characters are just kind of flat. So basically what happens is King Arthur, he gets awoken from the past. I don't know why. It's magic. King Arthur, Merlin did a spell or something. And all these knights, they're not awoken from the past. They didn't survive. They died. But they've been reincarnated into the present around the world. So we have this kind of what's that scene called? Like they have it in a lot of movies where you gather the team, like team gathering. I feel like that's a very cliched type of thing. Like they do it in Western movies. Somebody's like in jail. Somebody's almost going to get killed by India. Yeah. So anyways, we got some team gathering. And Merlin's kind of a weird Merlin. He's not the Merlin that I know from Sword in the Stone. He's kind of like a jolly but cranky guy. This Merlin's just constantly scowling, has like resting bitch face, perpetually angry, scowling Merlin. But he does help Arthur get his sword back, which, in the year 3000, a sword. What are you going to do without a sword? So the future is kind of dystopian, but not as dystopian as I think it could be. And this is where, like, I feel almost certain that Alan Moore read this. And Alan Moore's take on this probably would have been something like, this could have been good, but it wasn't. Like it had the potential of being good. It could have been much more interesting with the characters. It could have shown something much more, and this maybe kind of inspired him to do Watchmen. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but like I said, with this art, this looks kind of like not Brian Bolland, but like, oh, he's doing, even back then he was doing the backwards N. I didn't notice that. Brian Bolland signs his name with like a backwards N, like an E in Russian. This kind of looks like Alan Davis to me. This art right here. So that'd be another maybe artistic influence of that time. That it's not realism. It's kind of just like not cartoony. It's trying to approximate some level of realism with the anatomy, with the proportions. Although it does have swing lines, like and this would kind of last until like the late 80s, early 90s, when the image artists came along and started saying like, hey, we don't need to be realistic. Let's make things as unrealistic and exaggerated as possible. We're pretending we're realistic, but we'll create muscles that don't exist and body contortions that don't exist. So anyways, yeah, this is great art. I feel like this is good. These are great. I mean, it just looks very well done as a dystopian, but it's like then the dialogue, it's the Neo Man. I mean, that doesn't sound quite as scary. I love also how in the future, in the 1980s, everybody just has mohawks. It's very punk. Also, everybody watches on TV at home, and just the image of like the average person in the year 3000 is just so vague. It's like it's kind of like you don't really care. It's like we're more obsessed by these superheroes. So anyways, there are these kind of evil giant superheroes who one of the knights, he's reincarnated as this guy. He's kind of stupid, and he can't talk, but I don't remember which knight he is, like Galahad or something. I don't know, it doesn't matter. So anyways, there's a team gathering thing where they get all the knights together. So this panel, a 2-page panel, I mean, it's kind of showing that King Arthur can pull the sword from the stone. The kind of funny thing is, though, that nobody else had the chance to pull it. Like usually you'll have this scene where, like everybody else, 10 people try it, really strong guys try it. Nobody can pull it out of the stone. But in this instance, King Arthur's the only one that tries it, and he gets it right away. It'd be kind of funny if he didn't get it. And then he sends these flaming balls of spermat into the universe to his other knights who have been released and kind of recognize or realize that they are actually reincarnated beings. And King Arthur's former love, Guinevere, is that her name? I'm like I said, I'm kind of vague on a lot of the Arthur myth. I mean, I know the basic idea. It's just I don't know all the details. They do like a Jedi mind trick. It's kind of, looking back on these episodes now, like I would hate to reread this because it's just like, it's so disposable. And once you get it the first time, it's like, ugh. It was kind of just cheesy too in these early episodes. But there is like this sense of the ominous about it. Okay. And then this guy, who's this? Lancelot? Is that who it is that has the affair with Guinevere? He's kind of like a Han Solo type of guy. He's not quite as King Arthur-y, but he's a little more rascally. Maybe like Blade Runner, a little Blade Runner influence, wearing a trench coat. It's just funny how like the influences of these things just bleed into each other. And then this chick is, what's her name? Morgan Le Fay. I guess she's the like stepsister or sister of King Arthur or something. I don't remember the details. All right, issue 3, I guess we're at. This is a weird expression on King Arthur's face and his eyes. He just looks kind of droopy. And these are the other knights in the background. Okay, cover. This is a kind of a very standard splash page, I think, from the 80s, you could say, like, which somebody's pointing right into the audience as they read. Yeah, Merlin, kind of a two-dimensional, angry guy in this series. Lancelot and Guinevere, they kind of they start making out, and like they're back together, and like King Arthur is just kind of like he gets all wimpy, and then it's weird because like his plan when he realizes that they're seeing each other again is to marry her. That's what like Merlin advises him or something. And then we go back to Earth, and we have this kind of dystopian. There's always like these in the future. There's always like punks, and there's like gangs, and like there's always people with mohawks. The 1980s were just so big on, anti-gang stuff, anti-drug stuff, anti-everything. It's just like punk music reaction. So anyways, I forget which night this is. This is the night that ends up betraying King Arthur. Be you the one? So this is like, I think this is what you can talk about, this being like a superhero comic in which, King Arthur is able to block with his sword gunshots, and kind of Star Wars-y. Very melodramatic. Like that's like what I got throughout this, is that like I never see comics. I'm reading a lot of comics from the early 60s, like Marvel comics, and they're not melodramatic like this. They're dramatic, but there's a level of like melodramatic, like ridiculous, over the top. Like every emotion is just like over the top. I would say Brian Bolland is an okay interior artist, but I think he's much better at, pinups and covers. Because like usually the bigger the panel gets, the better the image looks. Like the more he zooms in on something. Whereas if he's just doing like an actual, like this is obviously the best panel on the page. These other ones are just like, boring. Nothing much happening. I mean, they're not bad. It's just, they do the job. But I think, the bigger his characters are, the bigger something that's happening is, the more interesting it is. So the everyman character, he ends up becoming a knight at the end of this. So anyways, he interrupts a wedding though. This is kind of one of the weirder storylines in the book. He interrupts this wedding, and the guy who he thinks he's like taking his bride, punches him in the face and then walks off, but he ends up getting killed later. Anyways, this knight is Tristan, like Tristan and Isolde, but he's been reincarnated as a woman. So we have like one of the earliest like kind of transgender characters, and not just transgender, but like he or she, how should I refer to him, her, them? He I don't know how to refer. He doesn't want to be a woman. Basically, he wants to be with Isolde still, who he meets later on as this chick, but he can't stand. So like the first thing he does when he realizes he's Tristan is he cuts off his hair, so he has this kind of butch, a little more of a masculine look. And this is so, this is so X-Men, like early X-Men, early 1980s X-Men. All right. Morgan Le Fay's triumphant. And then there's this, they start introducing this plot about there's a 10th planet beyond the sun, beyond Pluto, because this is when Pluto was still a planet. I don't think these proportions are right. I think these inner planets are a little smaller than this. Anyways, the point is there's a 10th planet beyond Pluto, in which at some point that's where the climax of the book is going to take place. They're all going to go there and fight aliens. So anyways, this is a pretty cool cover. Very Star Wars. Yeah, these, whenever you have like a ton of like a crowd scene like this, I think of George Perez or John Byrne. This also reminds me a little of Martha Washington, Dave, Dave Gibbons' art on that. I could see that. But like a lot of those artists are just, they come out of the 2000 AD school. Let's start picking it up. So these knights. So the knights all have, they all look very designed, like action figures. I think this was like they were kind of hoping this would take off and they could make action figures of all these. I could still see this being made into a movie. It could be made into a good movie. You'd have to like write it better. You'd have to update it. But I think if you added some more dystopian elements and made it a little darker, a little more dark humor and less full of itself and less serious about everything. That's what you see in so many of these like X-Men comics. Is characters are just so full of themselves and it's like so serious about everything. It's just so when they finally introduce like some characters with some humor, it's nice. This comic doesn't really have any funny characters. There's like a few attempts at humor, but mostly it's like grim and gritty, like that was like such a 1980s thing. Okay, I can't stand these kind of pages. I mean, I understand what they accomplished. They allow the artist to sell the artwork for more, but I can't stand these kind of pages. They're just like, they just reek of everything that I don't like about 80s superhero comics. And this kind of like, yeah, G.I. Joe into the distance. I mean, it's good. It's just like, it's like not, I don't know. Let's move on. So just a lot of grim and gritty stuff like this. They can't take. He looks like, I didn't realize this till now. This looks kind of like that Black Racer character from, Jack Kirby's New Gods and the Fourth World comics. I didn't really compare that guy. Let me see. I don't have I'll look him up on my phone and I'll show you. You tell me what you think. What's his name? Black Racer? I think it's his name. I don't think it's a coincidence that this guy's black too. If you didn't know, in the 1980s, especially the early 1980s, having one token black character, especially a lot of sitcoms from the 1980s, it was always just one character. And I Googled Black Racer and a snake came up. That's not what I want. Wasn't his name Black Racer? Or is it Dark Racer? No, Black Racer. Okay. So his colors are different, but his overall style is very similar. Let me see. Can you see that? Look at that. He's even got the little helmet on top. He's got a cape. Very similar design. I think they just changed the colors. All right. So where were we in this abomination? I mean, it's not an abomination. I enjoyed reading this comic. I mean, I read like one chapter a night over the last 2 weeks. It's just like, it just reminded me how much I don't want to read these kind of comics. I mean, because it's like not something I can do every day. After reading Moomin comics or Crazy and Ignatz, or this is a pretty good image. I like how they built this woman up that is like really attractive, and then like at some point in the issue they show her back and she has this skin problem. This is a really cool cover, I think. So I think this is Brian Bolland doing what he does best, like covers and telling a lot of cool imagery on the covers. At some point he probably just realized he can make more money doing covers than why do comics anymore. So at one point the characters like started suggesting she wear a dress, and she looks so much like kind of like Elvis, David Bowie here. It was very moody and angry. Look how the fist kind of comes into the distance, and we have like this outline around it. But banter among teammates is so common in superhero comics. This looks very much like kind of like Dark Knight Returns. I feel like Miller and Moore both read this comic, and the way that the government is depicted, maybe they didn't. Maybe it's just something from like like I said, 2000 AD and those kind of indie comics. So anyways, yeah, she has a skin problem. So the guy who was attracted to her, he's like, yuck. And yeah, we get this backstory about how, I was wondering, like, the aliens, they don't seem that smart. They don't seem, they're easy to beat. So like, how did they end up overtaking Earth? And it turns out she helped them. She like kind of trained them, but in doing so, she got these shell things on her back, and she has a monkey now that I don't know why she has a monkey. It's kind of just imagery. I think I was thinking about these characters. I don't really like any of these characters that much in the book. Like the good guys, they're just kind of like, even the main everyman character, he's just kind of like, I think he's trying to do like a Luke Skywalker look, but doesn't interest me. And again, King Arthur gets to see them kissing, and his solution is Merlin's solution. I think the clue here, the takeaway here is don't take advice on your love life from Merlin, who. So anyways, at one point, they're having sex, and then he's like, "Come to this room immediately." So he's still putting on his tie. I thought that was kind of funny. And Guinevere shows up, and they announce that they're going to get married, and then we get temptation. So apparently this is what Tristan would look like if he was a man. And Morgan Le Fay says, "Hey, I can turn you into a man. You just have to betray the Knights of the Round Table." And what this is doing is setting up one of the most convoluted. It's like such a stupid story moment, because basically Mike Barr is trying to trick us into thinking that Tristan is the one who betrays the Round Table, but in fact it's another knight, and we just kind of get it like told after the fact. Oh, so this is the cover from the book that I read. This is a pretty great cover. Looks very much like what is it, Crisis on Infinite Earths, where isn't Superman holding Supergirl? I don't know if that was after this or before, maybe about the same time. Yeah, look at this. This is a great image. Nice inking. Yeah, really well inked. So, like I said, the bigger the image with Brian Bolland, usually the better it looks. So anyways, betrayal is planned, and then this is the introduction. We get the introduction of Isolde, who ends up working for the bad guys, and more melodrama. I like his art, but I feel like there's not much. I mean, it's good. It's just I enjoy it. Works. What I'm trying to say is that I feel like it's very. The panels are very up and down, and I'm as I'm reading Jack Kirby's comics in the 60s, as he gets more innovative, it makes it harder to read stuff like this now, because you just see so many opportunities when you could make it a little more interesting. Like this is not bad. You have a little angle here, but I feel like there's more room for just kind of more dynamic narrative techniques. So King Arthur, they get married in public, and I don't know why the public brings them gifts, because they haven't saved the planet yet. There's still aliens on the planet. But anyways, there's an assassination attempt. Guinevere gets killed, and this is so hopelessly melodramatic. And then somehow there's a really convoluted fight scene in which this guy comes back from the dead as a monster, and then Lancelot gives his life to save Guinevere, but then he comes back too. It doesn't make any sense. It's really just ridiculously melodramatic, and this is a pretty good page. I like this image. This looks very Alan Davis to me. It's kind of like what's that guy in Batman, the mud guy, Clayface. It's kind of horror imagery. There's a cover actually in the Invisibles, I couldn't tell you which one it is, that has imagery very similar to this, like the caterpillar type stuff. I'm sure Morrison read this too, because he collaborated with Brian Bolland so much. It's funny how this seems like something that if you read it at the time, and there was just so much of this around, that you wouldn't be aware of all the things that you take for granted as like cliches of the time. But now, how many years later, 40 years later, it's like there's so many like things that have changed with the narrative, and that we don't do this way anymore. I don't know. I don't really read modern superhero comics. So I couldn't tell you what's normal now. King Arthur basically has two emotions, either super happy or super angry. So after the fight and after everybody's saved, King Arthur gives them all a pat on the back, blah, blah, blah. Very, very common kind of update. Basically, it's a recap, first few pages. Tristan and Isolde, they're lesbians. That's pretty bold for 1984 or whatever. But he also has guilt for being in a woman's body and not being able to satisfy her as he feels she needs. Also, this guy, the main guy, the Luke Skywalker guy, he's kind of in love with her. He's like, hey, maybe one day you'll like men. She's like, I won't. Yeah, some of the parts, like this little shrunken monkey who turns out to be a man who displeased her. It's like, it has nothing to do with the story whatsoever. It's just pure imagery. I thought that was kind of nice. Okay, this is another one of those panels that I can't stand. That's just like, attack, let's be bold. This is like if it was an animated theme song moment or an action figure commercial, this is the scene. And it's just like, it has like, it's just it's just like all these kind of archetypal characters that are just so, they're archetypes, but when you do them over and over, it's just, they become cliches. And including one black guy, including one Asian guy, including like two women. It's just like these proportions of what you're supposed to do, and it's like Okay, so basically, the King Arthur and they start winning against the aliens and so on. But look at this! It's pretty risque for I don't know if this was like a mature readers comics or if you're allowed to do this in like I don't know who is buying these comics. My understanding is that this comic was for the direct market, which means it went straight to comic stores. But does that mean it didn't show up in like 7-Elevens and stuff like that? Because that's where like I first read comics, was like the convenience store near my house. I would pick them up, and then I kind of realized that there were comic book stores, and then I'm like, oh, I got to go there, and then I never went back to convenience stores. But I don't know if this was available in convenience stores, and if like kids were allowed to buy it or what. But I hope so. All right, so yeah, great images, Brian Bolland. I like how King Arthur is reflected in the handle of his sword, so you know who's holding it in case you weren't sure. Oh, yeah, great splash pages, great covers. It's just the bigger the panel, the more he uses it. He's really good at inking, or whoever inked this is really good. I think actually, I want to say Terry Austin, one of the guys, one of the X-Men inkers. I think he inked a lot of John Byrne stuff. So anyway, somebody betrays the Knights of the Round Table. Merlin gets trapped. I don't understand this backstory with Merlin about who this woman is, but basically she catches him and traps him again. And they don't have Merlin again. You have to be better acquainted with the lore of the Knights of the Round Table. I kind of thought there would be a little more, explanation about King Arthur and stuff. It basically assumes that you know it all. And I guess, I kind of do, but I think there are a lot of aspects to it that I don't know. So everyone thinks that Sir Tristram betrayed, but she swears that, no, it wasn't me. And then so they get everybody else to do it. And supposedly the sword will tell who's lying, but it's just a regular sword. King Arthur's just fooling them all. And it's actually this guy, Sir Kay. I don't understand his reasoning. His reasoning is that he betrayed them to make, I don't know. It's like a stupid plot twist that doesn't make any sense. And it's just, the only reason they threw it in is just to like confuse you and trick you. And, basically they say like, you have to die because of that. And it's like so stupid. But then all of a sudden they're attacked and, like King Arthur's about to kill him. It's so stupid. And then instead, like they go to battle and he ends up dying in battle valiantly. So it's like his honor is reclaimed, like horrible shit like that. I can't stand storylines like this. Oh yeah, and in the process that both of these guys are trying to save King Arthur, and in the process one of them dies, and the other one, the everyman character, gets some kind of radiation poisoning. I don't understand. And he would die, but he's like, King Arthur's like, we got to get the Holy Grail and we'll save him. Like, if they knew where the Holy Grail was, why didn't they get it? Why did you wait for that? Don't you have you have like the entire aliens on your planet. Why don't you just get it right away? So anyways, because they lost a knight, they decided to make this guy who's dying a knight, and they decided to get the Holy Grail, blah, blah, blah. Where are we at? We're at chapter 9. I don't know how far we're into this thing, but I gotta pick it up. I can't take much more of this. We're only 200 pages. Okay, we're gonna blaze through this. Great cover. Like I said, he does really good shadows. All right, so recovering, they go to get the Grail. We get this backstory explaining the Grail, and I like how they show it. They explain when Jesus was on the cross, but they don't show him. They just show like the shadow of the cross, and they show like his hand with the nail through it. Actually, it should be through the wrist, right? Anyways. So this guy goes and has a revelation about where they can get the Grail. Then we have this fake flashback with Arthur. This guy doesn't matter. Basically, even the bad guys have drama too. Go stop. Sorry, my dog. All right. All right, I had an interruption. Let's keep going. All right. Look at this. We have a reminiscence. We have this constant reminiscence with Tristan about how good the man that Maya Isolde deserves. Then she'll be giggling and happy once she gets a real man. All right. So he wants a sex change. Yeah, this is the part where I'm talking about where the art, really great art, I think. A lot of great inking. I mean, this looks almost like Robert Crumb level inking right here. Whoever inked this looks great. Or Mobius. I see a lot of Mobius in this, like the line work. But it's wasted on this kind of mediocre storyline. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I think it was just like, maybe it led to things like Watchmen, but maybe it didn't. I'm just going to flip through the rest of this and, oh, nice cover. Actually, I don't know. I feel like this cover needs Like, it should be like maybe it was a wraparound cover and it's missing the other half, because I feel like we need to see more than just people holding guns. Yeah, this is straight out of Martha Washington Goes to War. Yeah, these inks, the colors in this one look better than the coloring in mine. The coloring in mine look kind of faded. So I think this is probably closer to how it originally looked when you had pristine white pages. Every character design has a unique design. These were clearly intended to be action figures. Like how his wig pops off as he gets impaled. Oh, and then they need Tristan to seduce a guard. So he at first he's like infuriated, and then the king orders him to be like a woman. So he uses his feminine charms to seduce the guard, and then boom, biatch. All right. So such cliches. Now, maybe, I mean, now, I don't know if you can do these now. They just wouldn't be as interesting. The Han Solo character has to die a noble death. I think. I don't remember if... Actually, I don't even remember if he died. I think he died. Kind of a nice end page. Get this nice, this gloomy-looking castle. Looks kind of unusual castle. Like it's almost alive or made out of like coral. And we finally meet the aliens and get to talk to them. We have this fake news going on around the world. The families think King Arthur's a traitor, blah, blah, blah. I feel like there is an X-Men character. I haven't read those X-Men comics in a long time. Which character looks like this? Maybe I'm thinking of like John Byrne's Superman stories. This looks very John Byrne to me, this page. To me, it's kind of funny now that, I mean, John Byrne, he was a good storyteller. I haven't looked at his comics in forever, but I don't know. It's like, it's just so, there's something like not as interesting to me about it. All right, let me wrap this thing up. Sorry, I had another interruption. I think maybe this wasn't the best choice for a design lab today, because it's a really long comic and I don't really have as much to add about it. Well, some of these images are pretty cool. I think it's kind of like, it's a good storyboard example of like what Brian Bolland can do, where his strengths are, where his weaknesses are, and that overall he's better at images than, well, not better at, but he's like, all he needs to do is like, he can tell an entire story in one panel or one cover. So like, why get him? They must be thinking like, why get him to do the entire interiors? Why don't we just have him do the covers? Because that's where he excels. And so we have like this final. We have this betrayal of King Arthur, but it's always a noble betrayal to like to sacrifice himself, and so Lancelot or whoever his name is goes in and he fights the bad guy. The bad guy has the Holy Grail. He can't die. Everybody seems like they're going to lose. We're all going to die, blah, blah, blah. Look at this cover. This is a great cover. This is this could be, this looks the most modern to me of the covers that Bolland did on this. Beautiful inking. We have this castle in the background. No characters in the entire cover, but just all these like amulets and swords and crowns and stuff, and a gun and a few hands. All right. So final issue. Long live the king. I wonder how long. Well, I think it must have taken him I think it did take him over a year. I think there were delays in the process of this comic because Brian Bolland wanted to get the art right. At least that's what I read somewhere. Actually, this 2-page spread is kind of uncharacteristic. There's not characters running into the foreground. This is such a gritty, sacrificial scene. Oh, they saved him? I totally forgot how this ended. I read it like 2 days ago, and I've already forgotten it. Merlin comes back. I don't know. He does something. Great cover. This could be a cover too. A lot of these like 1-page shots could be covers. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. These are those images that I hate. It's like, yeah, we're fighting. Yeah, winning. Okay. It just doesn't do much. Like in terms of comics, it's just like it's like a poster. It's maybe it will be turned into a poster or was turned into a poster. This image I thought was really cool. Like it's a good way of showing perspective without even using any lines that go into the distance. It's just all based on size. And it reminded me of that comic Soft City by I forget his name, but not Brian Bolland. It doesn't look like Brian Bolland to me. It looks like something very different, or maybe Mobius. That's another name that's come up in this a lot. This is kind of a cool part right here, I thought. With this spinning, we show King Arthur hitting a rock and zooming in to the atomic level, and somehow with his sword splitting the atom and causing a bomb explosion or something. I don't know what happens. It's just one of the most psychedelic, trippiest moments in the book. Doesn't make any sense, but that's why I liked about it. And then war was over and they won, and some people died and some people didn't. King Arthur died, I guess. Galahad. Basically, it's a recap. We got to find out who died, and the survivors soldier on. Merlin, of course, survives because he's the wizard. And then the Luke Skywalker guy realizes that he's never going to get with this girl, and they have to be happy as lesbians and not men. And then we get this kind of this very comic sex scene where we just see a hand touching a shoulder. What is this curve? Is this a breast? What is this, a butt? We don't know. Again, this could be, what are these? What are we looking at? Okay, let's move on. And then blah, blah, blah. Future, people are building shit and coming back. And then some alien finds the sword, which somehow survived the bomb. And he gets to be the next King Arthur. And to be continued in a book that we'll never read. And then the road goes ever on with some alien fighting against the witch. All right, so so I haven't seen this stuff. Let's take a look at the deluxe edition. We got about 12 pages left. Let's see what we got. Looks like we got some Brian Bolland's original pencil sketch for issue 9. All right. Was this the original? I guess these are the original art sketches for Arthur. Oh, selection, King Arthur. So at some point they decide to give him a beard. I think in the flashbacks in the Middle Ages, he doesn't have a beard. Very common way to show the passage of time. Who's this? This is Brian Bolland. I guess, wait. At home in Camelot, Brian Bolland at his studio in 1983 with a page of Camelot 3000 on the drawing table. So history in the making. It's a big desk you have there, Brian. Looks like he already had the cover of the comic on his wall. Some of the Superman covers. Yeah. I don't know what he's doing nowadays. If he's still very active or what. Someone tell me, what is Brian Bolland up to nowadays? No, we're just getting the original sketches. This doesn't really interest me that much. I definitely don't have much interest in the script. Prologue, the age of chivalry. I don't even want to read this. Okay. I'm pretty sure I'm done with this comic. So yeah, there you have it. Who's this on the left? Is this? Oh, that's Mike Barr. I didn't realize that. I've only seen the only image I think I've seen of Mike Barr is on his Wikipedia page, in which he's much older now. I think he's still alive. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. But anyways, so can I recommend this comic if you like Brian Bolland's art? I guess if you like all the comics that I mentioned, X-Men and Star Wars and all that whole vibe. Personally, I can't. I'm more I can't wait to get out of this comic and never see it again. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like much about it. Well, I feel like I wanted to like it more than I could, just because like imagery like this keeps me from liking it. And yeah, the time has come to end this. This is where I downloaded it from. Yeah, so I guess we're done with Design Labs. I can't even talk. Design Labs look at Camelot 3000. Let's go back to the cover. A comic that, yeah, it is what it is. Next episode, I'll try and look at some comic that I actually like, because this one I felt like I could only like certain aspects of it, the art, but not the story. And yeah, but what did you think? Do you love Camelot 3000? And if you have any other Brian Bolland art or Mike W. Barr comics that you like, let me know in the comments below. And we're done.